Right, so welcome everybody. Thanks very much for joining me today. It's yeah, really great to have you with us for the next half an hour. Thank you for sparing the time. My name's Eduardo Lees. I'm the Global Opportunities Manager, and over the next half an hour, I'm going to introduce you to the opportunities that Goldsmiths has available for students to study, work, and volunteer abroad. Also delighted to be joined by Malika, who has taken part in some of these opportunities in the past couple of years. So you'll be hearing from her a little bit more in a bit later as well. So, first up, why is international experience important? So hopefully this, I mean, the fact that you've joined this meeting hopefully shows that you already see that it's important, but you know, going abroad, studying and working abroad gives you a real opportunity to experience different work and academic styles and environments. It helps you to develop skills, both personal, such as self-confidence and independence, and also kind of employability skills. So, for example, digital skills in particular, the virtual global opportunities, and greater intercultural awareness and communication skills, which can be great when you're applying for jobs, great in terms of building relationships in general, and really kind of support you to become a global citizen. The kind of taking part in these opportunities will help you to stand out from the crowd, again in relation to job applications and CVs, but also to build new relationships, both in terms of networks for future collaboration, but also in terms of friendships around the world. First up, in terms of coronavirus and Brexit, which have had an impact on international opportunities over the last year and a half, we are able to send students abroad at the moment. In the current situation, obviously things could change, but in order for students to kind of study or work abroad, there have to be kind of four things have to be met. So the host university organisation have to have COVID mitigations in place and have to confirm that they are able to host students. You have to have appropriate travel insurance in place, including coronavirus cover, and a lot of students are covered by Goldsmiths travel insurance, so that's fine. But that's something that's very important. The UK Foreign Office has to allow travel to the country, so it can't be on the red list, for example. And the whole placement has to be approved by Goldsmiths management, which is something we support with through a risk assessment process. In terms of Brexit, there's some changes in terms of the funding in future years, but also, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail shortly, but also there have been some changes in terms of immigration into, for example, to study in Europe for UK passport holders. So again, the team are here to support you, but just to make you aware of those impacts. So what can you do at Goldsmiths? The global opportunities that we have available are kind of fall into two categories. You can do something as part of your degree. You can study abroad at a partner university for a term. You go abroad, you take credits, you take modules, and you bring them back and they form part of your degree. So that's a kind of an opportunity that is really part of your course. Or you can apply for funding to support study, work, or volunteer abroad over the summer, which is more flexible. It doesn't have to be part of your degree, some relation to your degree, but you know, there's much more flexibility to do something kind of very different or anywhere around the world. So we have funding to support students to work abroad in Europe for 2 to 3 months from Erasmus. We have funding from Santander Universities and Goldsmiths to support you to study, work, or volunteer abroad for 2 months or less anywhere in the world. And we have funding to support virtual global opportunities, which allow you to access international experience from home, which I will talk about in a bit more detail shortly. Just to give you some examples of what students have done in the past. Students have studied for a term in Amsterdam, Bologna, Vienna. This year we're sending students to Japan, to Waseda and Osaka. In terms of the summer opportunities, students have done a whole range of things, from 1 week at a computing conference in Berlin to a month studying French language in Paris, or volunteering at a psychiatric hospital in Sri Lanka. Kind of work placement-y kind of experiences such as teaching English, or one student designed Italian furniture by Lake Como as part of their design work placement module. So you could also use the funding for the summer activities to support your work placement module. And then in terms of the virtual opportunities, you'll hear a little bit more from Mika shortly about her experience, but students have completed online summer schools, they have learned language, a foreign language remotely, and as Malika's going to talk to you a little bit more about work remotely for a South African NGO. So lots of different opportunities available. The first one I'm going to talk about is the studying abroad for a term. Applications are now open, so you can apply for this now, although the deadline isn't until March. So, you know, don't feel that there's any rush. You can do some research, you can look into it. So studying abroad at a partner university, as I mentioned, forms part of your course. So you take a term out of your studies at Goldsmiths, you go abroad to a partner university, you study modules there, and then you bring back the credits to Goldsmiths as part, and they form part of your degree. All of our partner universities around the world offer modules in English, and there's no additional tuition fees related to going abroad. In fact, we offer funding to support students to do that. So Erasmus funding for Europe, which is €370 or 420 euros per month at a minimum, and there's top up for students from an income household income of £25,000 a year or less. We also have additional funding for disabled students. We have a green travel fund as well to support students who want to travel in a kind of more sustainable way. And there is additional funding for students outside of Europe as well. So that, you know, there's funding here to support you to go abroad. You also continue to receive your student loan, although you may not get the non-London weighting. Opportunities to study abroad vary across departments, so not all departments have a partner university at the moment, or it might not be, it might not really kind of fit into your studies. So generally students will study abroad in their undergraduate degree, and generally it will be in the autumn or spring term of their second year, or occasionally autumn term of their third year. If you're doing a master's and PhD, there are opportunities as well. Tends to be easier for part-time master's students and PhD students. There's not very much time within a year to study abroad kind of in a full year master's, and actually potentially it'd be better to look at the summer opportunities if that's what you're interested in. Moving on to those summer opportunities, we have a whole range of funding available to support you with this. Applications are not yet open, they open in January. So this really is about kind of thinking about what you want to do and starting your research now so you can submit an application then. As I mentioned, we have funding from the Erasmus programme. It's the last year of the funding for this opportunity, and to fund 2 to 3 month internships in Europe. How this works is that students find their own placement, and we give you lots of guidance on how to do that. And then you apply to us for funding to support with the costs. So for the traineeships, it's between €470 and €520 per month, depending on your destination. There is additional top up for students with household incomes of under £25,000 a year. And as with the study, there's support for students with disabilities. There's a green travel fund. And one good thing about the Erasmus internships is if you're in third year currently, you can either do it in this summer, or you could do it after graduation, up to a year after graduation. So there's a little bit of time there if you're in your final year to do that. Just some examples of students who have done this in the past. We've had students working at a publishing office in Amsterdam, a recording studio in Iceland, and the UN in Hungary. So a real range of opportunities there. The next kind of funding that we have is from Santander Universities and from Goldsmiths to support students to study, work, volunteer or train overseas anywhere in the world. So you find your own placement. This opportunity is open to all part-time and full-time undergraduate and postgraduate students, as the last one was, and you can find an opportunity that suits you anywhere in the world where the Foreign Office allows you to travel. So just some examples: in the past, students have volunteered at a refugee centre in Greece, attended summer schools in Helsinki and Amsterdam, studied French in Toulouse, done an acting course in Hollywood. So there's a real range of activities here. All students can apply for up to £500 to support with the costs of this opportunity. And if you meet our widening participation criteria, which I'll show you in a second, you can apply for up to £1,500. This funding could also, as I mentioned, fund a work placement module. So we've done that for design students in the past. So if you have a work placement module in the kind of spring term of your second year undergraduate, you could potentially do it in the summer and be funded by us to do it overseas. Here are the widening participation criteria. I will send the slides around afterwards, but just to give you an idea, just have a quick look. You must be a UK domiciled student, so you must have been living in the UK for 3 years by the start of your undergraduate degree, or if you're a postgraduate or PhD student, you must have been resident for at least 3 years, not including any period of study. And then you must meet one of the other criteria, and that's for the additional funding. For the base level funding, all students can apply. You may have heard talk about the Turing scheme. So this is one of the impacts of Brexit, is that the UK is currently part of the Erasmus programme, which is an EU-funded programme to support students to study and work abroad. As we've left the EU, the UK government have confirmed that we won't be participating in future Erasmus programmes, and so next year will be the last year that we get funding from Erasmus to support students. Instead, the UK government have set up a new scheme called the Turing scheme, which will support students at UK universities to study and work abroad. And the funding is kind of quite similar to Erasmus, so it does mean that there are still opportunities for funding, and it's been confirmed for the next 3 years. So this year we have secured funding at Goldsmiths, and mainly this funding will support 1 to 2 month placements, funding for summer schools, work placements and language courses. We'll find some specific placements sourced by Goldsmiths, which we'll share with students next term. And roughly, to give you an idea, students will get a grant of £140 to £160 per week to support with costs. Again, you know, this is dependent on where you're going, and more information is to come. Virtual Global Opportunities will open again in January. So again, this is something to research in advance, but Virtual Global Opportunities is something we brought in during COVID when students couldn't travel. So they're an opportunity to build your skills from home, to study or work virtually while engaging internationally. And the kind of big requirement is that they involve interacting virtually with participants from across the world. And actually, you know, on a daily basis, I work with international partner universities around the world, often who I don't meet, but who I have to build that relationship with virtually. So the skills you get from a virtual global opportunity are very, very relevant to kind of working today. I've given examples of this in the past, but again, the funding for students is up to £500 for all students, or if you meet our widening participation criteria, you can apply for up to £1,500, and that is to support with the costs of the placement, so a placement fee, for example. At this stage, I'm going to bring in Mika, who has taken part in a virtual global opportunity in the past. I will stop sharing my screen, and Mika, if you're able to put your video on, that would be great. Oh, lovely. A nice bit of sun outside.
Sorry, it might not be clear enough to see, but yes, it's very bright outside.
Yeah, I can see you. Right, I'm going to stop presenting so that we can see you properly.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mika, yeah, if you wanted to introduce yourself and just share, you know, what are the opportunities that you have completed with us?
Okay, so hello all. My name is Mika. I'm a student here at Goldsmiths. I'm in my final year. I'm doing psychology, and I've actually been lucky enough to take part in 2 opportunities, both of which were virtual internships. One last year in South Africa, and one in the summer just gone, set in Fiji. And yeah, I sort of sourced them myself, and then came to the team for funding for both of them.
Fantastic. And can you tell us a little bit more about both placements? What kind of things you did on them? That would be great.
Okay, sure. So in the internship in South Africa, I worked with an NGO, and they were based in Cape Town, and they were working with children of school age who are at risk, working with them after school, teaching them sort of life skills and skills they weren't learning in school, and also trying to create a sort of community so that they would stay in school. And what I was doing was working with sort of those in charge, essentially, that was running them, to create sort of things that were exciting for the children, and modules for them to learn, And so the thing I enjoyed the most was probably creating a module for girls aged 11 to 16 or 17, sort of covering a wide range of issues that they believed they weren't finding support with. So bullying, sort of crossing a intergenerational gap with those at home, and staying with their studies, for example. And I really enjoyed it, found it super relevant to my course, and found it really a wide range of transferable skills. And then the internship I did recently was totally different. It was, like I said, based in Fiji, and essentially a whole wide range of groups, organizations, or teams sort of went to Think Pacific, who I interned with, and said, "Oh, we have these projects, please help us with these." So what I chose was to write a report on non-medicinal therapies for mental health for the Psychiatric Survivors Association. So yeah, that's what I did for both. Really different, but really fun.
Yeah, very different. And what do you think you've gained from the experiences? What have you learned?
I definitely learned a lot about culture. So they're very different places, lots of different cultural experiences. And what was really great about both internships was that they integrated that within them. So although I wasn't in the country physically, I was still learning about cultural norms. I learned a bit of the language, which I've since forgotten, but it was very useful at the time. And that's kind of what I took away. But less specifically, possibly, was sort of the confidence I gained from it, was being able to be confident in my project work that I could do alone, and that really transferred into studies. So, for example, being able to do the research for the module that I created, so kind of learn about statistics, learn about some, for example, Black female role models that these girls could look up to. I have been able to use that in my course a lot, especially doing psychology. Have been able to, look at papers, and that kind of research has been useful. But yeah, again, also the confidence in what I've done and being confident enough to present it as well, because in both I was able to present a lot of stuff, but those would be the top three, I guess.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And just any tips for those on the call in terms of when they're thinking about what they'd like to do and the kind of things they're wanting to gain, anything you can share from your experience?
Yeah, I guess my tips, if you're already here, this is great, and it shows a lot of interest, and I think it's really good because doing any opportunity abroad really makes you stand out, and it's something unique, and it can keep you motivated as well to keep on your course, take a break a bit, and see your course differently. So your subject, for example, so with psychology, it's all very theoretical, but the stuff I did was a way to put that into practice. That's really good. And I guess tips would be to definitely decide on where you'd like to go, do your research as early as possible. So even if applications haven't opened, perhaps for funding, do look out for places that resonate with you. And I guess just make sure you push yourself out of your comfort zone. So even if it's stuff you wouldn't do normally, go for it. You'll come out of it much better in the end. And if it's something you think you totally not do otherwise, that could be a future you problem. You can worry about that in 6 months time. So yeah, just do your research and don't hold yourself back, will be the tips.
Great, thanks, Malika. And if we'll finish off the presentation, but if you have any questions for Malika, do put them in the chat, and there'll be a chance. I'll stop the recording at the end of the slides, and we can have a Q&A, and there's a chance to kind of ask a few more questions. But thanks very much, Malika. And let me just get this presentation back up. 2 seconds. I would also say that the skills that you gained from those two places, from the first placement, also helped in terms of applying for jobs, as far as I'm aware, Malika, as well, wasn't it? So really did help you kind of get some kind of further work experience in the UK. So yeah, another point to make. Right, the slides are just coming back up. 1 second. So just a few points around the placement requirements. So generally they must be linked to your kind of study or future career in terms of like the skills you're going to gain. It doesn't have to be part of your course necessarily, but there just have to be a kind of link there. We want to see that in the application. The 2 to 3 month internships must be full time, and all of the placements must have a kind of structured program of activity within an organisation. They should be outside of the UK, and if you're an international student, they shouldn't be in your home country. So you can go to any other country other than your home country if you're an international student. As I mentioned already, the organisation must have policies in place to manage the risk of COVID, and if they're virtual, they must include interaction with peers or colleagues in another country. And generally, in terms of a time frame, they must take place outside of the teaching exam period at Goldsmiths, unless it's like an Erasmus graduate traineeship. How to find placement. I just did a presentation earlier, or kind of a more detailed presentation on how to find placement, and I will be putting that on our YouTube channel and sending it around. So I'll do keep an eye out for that. But a few kind of tips. Placements are the kind of summer placements are sourced by students. We do send around lots of ideas or lots of particular summer schools from partner universities that might be of interest. So keep an eye out for that. But ask your department, if there's a work placement in particular that you'd be interested in, they might have contacts in that particular field. You can speak to the careers service. You can also give lots of advice and guidance. You could get in touch directly with an organisation that you're interested in working with, maybe reaching out through LinkedIn or just emailing them directly with a CV and covering letter. We've got a page called Finding the Right International Opportunity on our webpage, which I will share at the end, which is also good to have a look at. And look at our guidance on the website relating to students with a disability, those who identify as LGBTQ+, and those from different ethnic backgrounds, because there's lots of information there on kind of thinking about your ethnicity, thinking about your sexuality, thinking about your disability, and how you kind of might look into kind of the places that you want to go to, and the kind of attitudes and the kind of support that there might be in those places. So do that all kind of forms part of the research before you go. Some more things around how to find a placement. These are some useful websites. So Erasmus Intern and Eurodesk are good for the 2 to 3 month internship in Europe. The Workaway info, European Solidarity Corps, and ASEC are all good for work placements as well. And then the last two, the International Voluntary Service and International Citizen Service, provide some good ideas for volunteering as well. Partner universities, we have some really excellent summer schools from partner universities. So the University of Amsterdam has loads and loads of summer schools, which I'll share in the chat in a second. The University of Gothenburg has a fantastic summer school for sustainability, which we will be recruiting students to in the new year, so keep an eye out for that. There is also one in the University of Trento that is focused on psychology, which might be of interest as well. So yeah, keep an eye on our website and on the kind of VLE page for all of those kind of summer schools. You can look on kind of websites such as goabroad.com or gooverseas.com, which have a whole host of opportunities to study and work abroad. Do be aware that sometimes the opportunities on there have quite high placement fees, so don't necessarily always go with the first thing you find. Doing a little bit more research, you might find some other stuff. Foreign language courses are a really excellent way to gain international experience. You could go and study at a language school abroad and get to know that city really well, and also develop a foreign language. If you're looking for virtual opportunities, then these websites, Future Learn, Study Portals, and edX are all good for those. And Pagoda Projects do an intercultural fluency skills course, which could help prepare for an international experience, and they also do a range of different opportunities as well. So how to get involved. Online applications will open on the Go Abroad page. So Study Abroad for a term is already open on there, but if you want to do summer opportunities, that will open in January. As I mentioned already, students who meet our widening participation criteria will be eligible for additional funding. We have guidance on application writing on the Go Abroad blog. I'm also doing a session on Friday at 11 o'clock on how to write a good application, so do keep an eye out for that. In general, priority is given to students who have not had funding before or international experience before, and those from a widening participation background. But we do, please do apply, even if you don't fit into that criteria. We've funded, we've managed to fund most students who've applied in the past. So it's, we want to receive as many applications as possible to support students to go abroad. Another thing to think about if you're doing a skills or training or work-based placement abroad is that you could combine it with the Gold Award, which is the Goldsmiths Careers Service Professional Development Award. This is a really good way to kind of package your experience. It helps to increase your self-awareness, understand your strengths and areas for improvement, and kind of gain recognition for those co-curricular activities. So do have a look at that. Even if you don't want to combine the two, the Gold Award is fantastic and definitely something to consider. So I would really encourage you to look into that. In terms of next steps, if you haven't already, please sign up to our Go Abroad VLE page. It's called Go Abroad on the Learn.Gold. We'll be sharing lots of information and alerts through that. Visit our webpage to look at the support pages, as I mentioned, in terms of all the research, the guidance on kind of costs and support available while abroad. Read the student blogs, which again I can share in the chat in a second. Attend other events this week. So I mentioned we've got one on language learning tomorrow, one on study abroad tomorrow, and then one on application writing on Friday. So definitely still some things that might be of interest. You can come and speak to the team on a Wednesday morning in the space in RHB 180 to 181, or you can just contact us directly by email there at goabroad@gold.ac.uk. I'm also just going to share a evaluation questionnaire in the chat. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. And for taking the time to spend half an hour listening to all of the information today. What I'll do now is I will stop the recording and then we can have a Q&A. So and a big thank you, to Mika for spending the time sharing her experience of studying and working abroad through a virtual global opportunity.